Welcome to the We Rock DM podcast, your source for all things digital marketing. Join hosts Daniel Bissett and Trisha Olberg as they explore the latest trends and share their expertise on how to succeed in the digital age. Tune in for expert advice on search engine optimization, social media marketing, and content strategy. We make kick-ass stuff kick-ass. So join us and learn how to rock your digital marketing. Welcome to the We Rock DM Amplified podcast with hosts Daniel Bissett, that's me, and Trisha Olberg. Here to speak today with our very special guest, Brittany Tam from the Financially Empowered Entrepreneur. We're very excited to have you on this show. Brittany, welcome. Nice to have you.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much. Thanks for
welcome.
I'm looking forward to the insight.
So you've been on podcasts before. Have you ever been on a podcast where somebody kind of attempts to do their best to tear your business apart? At least from a digital marketing perspective.
No, this is a first, and it sounds like it's going to be fun.
It's going to be super fun.
We do definitely try to have a good time with this. I want to be very clear because you don't know either of us. Our intention through this next while, however long it turns out to be, is not to make you feel any sad feelings. I totally don't want you to feel at all personally attacked. This is the type of thing that people come to us and actually ask us for, and they pay us good money for this sometimes. And when they do that, by the very nature that they have come asking for it, they're a little bit more open to the criticism. But what we hope to bring is a constructive element. So if we have something to criticize, we'll do our best to provide you with something constructive. As I saw in a little consul's office down in Peru when I was trying to enter the country years and years ago, there's a little sign and it said, if you don't have an answer to the problem, you're part of the problem. And so what we try to always bring to the table is at least a potential solution. Okay. And we're trying to be mindful of budget. So when we provide solutions, we'll try to use tools that are freemium that you would have access to without having to pay hundreds of dollars a month for a subscription. That's very common and it becomes overwhelming. And so hopefully what we bring to the table will be some actionable items that you can do yourself and then prioritize the more challenging, more time consuming, maybe more difficult solutions for later. But so just to get started, Brittany, can you tell us about your business? What is the Financially Empowered Entrepreneur and who are you trying to serve?
It really has been an evolution. So originally I had these dreams when I opened my bookkeeping practice that I would be like helping owners get clarity, like as if the missing piece was just the data processing and the unpacking of reports. And for some people it was, but for a lot of it tended to be female solopreneurs that I worked with, regardless of what like systems and structures that we put into place for getting receipts in, for like getting clarification on unknown transactions, for unpacking stuff. Like I could never get the data in a timely manner to give reports that allow them to make real-time decisions. And so after a few stressful tax seasons, it like got to be, well, what's behind this. And I found myself in a lot more conversations about what are the beliefs driving it, what are the emotions going on, what are the almost reactive behaviors that people are engaging in. And like before this, I was in a life of education. And so in some ways it felt like going back to that side of my life where it's what is the situation? What are the needs that need to be met? And how are we going to meet those needs? And I had to take a moment to decide how I wanted to channel my energy. Do I want to channel my energy into the bookkeeping? Where am I finding delight? And man, I love those conversations. So that's the road I've gone down.
Helping people.
Yeah, working with business owners, because I think the thing is, before you go into business, there's a certain amount of making do that can happen when you're not personally responsible for invoicing and collecting on those invoices and making sure that money lands in your bank account. So if you are somebody who avoids money, you can avoid money, right? Mm-hmm. But when you're creating business for yourself, then if you don't bring the money in, that money's not coming in.
That's right. That's very important.
If you are managing the money, then that money is not getting managed, right?
Yeah.
And then entrepreneurship, I think, triggers learning in a way that other choices don't. And we don't necessarily anticipate that that's going to happen either, because nobody goes like, go into business because it's going to trigger scarcity around money, or it's going to make you question your confidence, which is all parts of that journey.
I love this. So first of all, my dad is a CPA. So when you talk about the stressful tax season, I have a lot of memories of stressful tax seasons, I understand. And also I'm a creative, and money is not one of those things that I like to think about in my own business. That's just not where my brain likes to go. So I can completely understand why this would be such a valuable service you're providing. For entrepreneurs, it is so important. The whole point of going into business is to make money. And without good financial decisions, your business is not going to succeed. I can see how this would be very valuable. And I love your perspective and your mission. I think it's great.
Thanks.
So
Brittany, you mentioned feely parts.
Brittany, you mentioned somewhere in our prompts, before we started this podcast, you mentioned women a lot, women solopreneurs. Is that your sole and target market, or do you take on anyone? You just have noticed that you tend to take on more women than men.
I think that's it. I am happy to work with. I'm happy to work with anyone. I feel like I've attracted more women than men, and I feel like part of the stories like that I've been connecting with women on. There have been a lot of stories about women who've created this business in search of financial independence and a sense of freedom, but haven't necessarily gotten that. And recently, a lot of conversations with women who've talked about being in relationships and not knowing if that is the relationship, but also not feeling like they can make choices because of money stuff, right? So I think that some of those things really hit home for me.
Just trying to unpack from a marketing perspective, who do you want to reach? Who gives you the most joy in your work? Who pays you the most? Because you've got to pay your own bills. So where's that money coming from? And if we were going to target one specific market, ideally we want to target that one entity that brings us the most money and creates the most joy in self and in fulfillment of our occupation, right? So could you like crunching the data points from the last year or two, now that you've been put on this spot momentarily, can you think of one person, don't name them unless you want to, but can you think of one person that generated both great financial gains and also great joy in your job?
So I think that I noticed that we have different patterns that come up, right? And one of the patterns is going through that feast and famine. So I've had women that I've worked with that have a hard time generating revenue. And like you say, this is where that ability to pay comes in. But on the other side, I do have women who are great at generating revenue. They're also great at spending it. And so that's, I think, where there's opportunity, because we can have the conversations about what are the motivating factors for that. And there's a level of insight that you can get from what they're spending on that makes them go, you know, maybe actually this is the thing that will change things. Because a lot of the things that they're spending on are things that they think are going to like magically solve the problem.
Okay, so one thing I like to do when I first meet with a client and try to start unpacking their current strategy to build, hopefully, a formula for a more successful strategy is to try and isolate that one individual. And in digital marketing, we call this the persona. Okay.
Do you need more specifics? Is that?
Yeah. So we need all kinds of specifics on this one person. Okay. This is the one person that you want to duplicate end over end, time over time, because they are the one that generates all of those things. Okay. Male, female, age, demographic, break it down.
Okay. So she is in her early 40s. She's been in business. She was not in full-time business until 3 years ago, I think, is when she started business full-time. Before that, it was side gig. And that's what led to the full-time business. She is in a service business. Her particularly is event planning. She
married.
Do you need more details? More.
Married.
Was married. Now separated.
Children.
One child.
Okay. Okay. So maybe annual income bracket.
So her business revenue has gone up to around from 80 to around 160,000.
Okay. And she paid you well. She paid you fairly. Okay.
So she has previously invested in other things that are like, we will make you rich in the next 2 months. And
okay. Instead, so she's now choosing to invest in your help, your services.
When you start to see those patterns of behavior and you're able to be like, so would it be accurate to say that you are feeling like somebody else has the magic key? you're seeking somebody else to come and rescue you, then they're like, oh my God.
Okay, so this is actually very, very important, because we not only know this person from a demographic perspective, we also know some of her psychographics, right? Which are she's been bitten probably 2 or 3 times by a genuine attempt to improve, but failed. Several failed attempts, right? She's not been stung so hard that she's willing to give up. She's still looking for something, not necessarily anymore a magic pill, but a solution to help, right? All of these pain points, all of these previous experiences, if we know the exact sources that she went to prior to coming to you, then we can market on their websites if they allow for ads. We can market to people who follow their Facebook pages, their Twitter accounts. We can find them and market to those people who are currently getting bitten, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and if we have tailored messaging to a 40-year-old woman with 1 child recently separated that is going to resonate with them, you just found yourself 1,000 customers next week, right? So we need to, what you've just done, you want to take some of those notes. We have the transcript, so we'll share it with you. But you want to take the notes and reverse engineer this. And when you go as a teacher, you know this, when you go and you lecture to a classroom, you don't lecture to the entire classroom. You lecture to that one person sitting out there making eye contact with you. And then you look at another one and you speak to that one. And you're speaking just to them. Everybody else is listening. They're taking away from it. They are enjoying / appreciating / learning, whatever it is. But you're not trying to pander to the masses. You're speaking to the individual, just like Mr. Rogers. When he spoke to that child, he was the whole world was gone. He was just speaking to that one child with his whole heart. And then all the other children listening felt it and felt the love. And they thought that he was speaking to them too, right? So when you go for a marketing strategy, you do the same. You find her, because there are so many of hers out there. You don't need to find anybody else yet. And once you've dialed that in and you've seen you begin to reap the benefits of having focused on her, then you get to choose, okay, do I want to expand, or do I want to niche down even harder? Someone who has 3 children instead of 1, or you know what I mean? So just from a holistic marketing strategy, I think develop that persona as detailed as you possibly can. Give a name to it, maybe not her name, but give a name to that persona that resonates and that tracks, and find a picture that represents her to you and start speaking to her. Whenever you start thinking, what should I do with my website? Ask her. She's the one that will guide you and tell you, not me, not Trisha. I don't know you. I'm not your target demographic. I'm in my 40s. I have children, but I'm not separated and I'm not a woman. And I haven't tried those get rich quick schemes. So, I'm out. So you really want to speak to that one person and let her guide those decisions. Now, you can see behind me that banner, it depends. You do need to have an open mind, right? And don't limit yourself. Don't get so stuck on just speaking to her. But from a guidance perspective, if you can start tailoring your messaging to her, it will resonate with so many people. But it especially will resonate with the hers that match her persona. Trisha, is there anything else you want to add to that?
I was going to just say, so now thinking about that, you're probably thinking, well, how do I do that? what are right?
I was thinking, like, it sounds like you're really tapping into that ability to be empathetic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love. Yeah. No, I love it.
Yeah. And really, there's a lot of ways to do this, but you can start with your content and your message, and you already have a really good foundation for that. I've looked through your website and I've read your written content on your website, and I can tell you're already have a good start there.
Her website, for all that are listening, is thefee.ca. So thefee.ca. Sorry to interrupt, Trisha.
Yes. Yes, no, that is fine. And things I've initially noticed about your website is you have a lot of pictures of women. That's a good way to start. And they seem to fit kind of the demographic that you just described. I'm like maybe 40s around there. And so that's a good start. And just the way you're speaking is good. Like you really are tapping into the empathy. I can feel that. There are definitely things that we could do to help that, though, and we'll talk about that. And just like Daniel, yay! Just like Daniel said, if you keep the persona in mind while you are creating content, that really will help define your marketing strategy. So, and then help bring you more of the customers that you're looking for, right? So let's start diving into your content and your website and see what we see here.
So for those listening, not watching the live video or a clip of the video recording, we've opened up thefee.ca and we're looking at the homepage here, and straight away I see a woman that matches the demographic. She's smiling. She's looking down to her right. She's looking towards us, the viewers, and she's looking down to her right. And very, very cleverly, I see in the content in this hero section, a call to action button that is on the path of her vision. Now, I don't know if you did this intentionally, if you chose that graphic intentionally, but from a psychological perspective, it hits all of the targets. Right? We've got a human, we've got a happy human, smiling and looking at the call to action button. Because we visitors, when we go look at a picture, we can't help it. It's just like walking down the street in a new town or a new city. If somebody looks up, we will look up. We follow that. We track their eyes. It's one of our final instincts. We do that probably as a self-preservation more than anything. What's falling out of the sky kind of thing. But from a psychological perspective, we can harness that and be very, very clever with it. And so you've done a masterful job of putting your call to action in line with your site of vision, right? So that's perfect. However, the re-envision your relationship with money. That's your value proposition. That's the most biggest piece of text that you see when you first load your website. It's a bit of a mouthful, right? I'm not an unintelligent man, but I have to read that a couple of times to really understand what in the Hades you're trying to sell me. And so I kind of feel like maybe that's a miss. I love that it's short and snappy. It's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words, but I don't know that I understand those words the way that they are meant to be understood immediately. Right? So what I try to do is recommend that you use this value prop opportunity when you're writing it to try and get it to be instantaneously digestible. And so if you said this to a 10-year-old, would they understand you like without hesitation? Right? So I asked my 10-year-old daughter, hey, what does this mean to you? Re-envision your relationship with money. And I might have lost them at re-envision. Not that they don't know that word, but that word starts making them wonder, what do you mean re-envision, right? So our last podcast, one of the guests was like, ooh, this reminds me of, what's that game called, Trisha? Poetry, Neanderthal poetry, right?
Yes.
Poetry with Neanderthals, where you have to come up with single syllable words. You don't necessarily have to do that, but you want to get words that are simple, because those we can read quickly and digest immediately, right? So I might recommend re-envision is a little bit of a cumbersome, heady kind of word. Reimagine maybe says the same thing, but as you know, we can get into the differences in the actual words themselves and the meanings behind them. But ultimately, we're trying to come up with something that is easily digestible. And re-envision is not a word that is heard often. And so I feel like that might be a miss. Reimagine also feels a little maybe like it's not the right word either, but find or improve your relationship with money. You know, something that's actionable, that's simple. And the concept relationship with money is also kind of a unusual concept, right? Like, what do you mean my relationship with money? And now I have to start unpacking all of those things. And I'm getting real quick into the emotions. Yes, you want your visitors to become emotionally attached to your messaging. You do want that to happen. But straight out of the gate, these are two kind of problematic issues that I have with it. I mean, that's just personal. Okay. Trisha.
So I wanted to also echo your choice of photo is wonderful, especially because it's you. That's very brave, because a lot of people feel self-conscious about putting big pictures of themselves on their website, myself included. And I think for you especially, that's important, because you are positioning yourself as a financial advisor. People need to have trust in you. So I think it's really great and a great photography choice. I just wanted to echo that. Back to what Daniel was saying about your call to action and the headline and the subhead. So what stood out to me more was actually your it's your tagline or your subhead. It's your tagline: shine a light on your money stories and learn to co-create with money compassionately. So I feel like that could use a little bit of tweaking also. I'm not sure what I would know what co-create with money means. Money stories, you're probably talking about the stories we have in our head about money, a relationship with money, but it's not completely clear. And if somebody was reading that who maybe was very, very new to these concepts, they might say, well, what do they mean? Money stories, co-creating with money. So maybe make that a little bit more clear. That would be my advice there. Speaking of just your CTA, I see another somewhat a button in your top nav that I think is interesting. You have this big about button on the right-hand side of your top nav. And that is unusual to see that there. Typically, you don't see a button that large unless it is like a call to action somewhere down in the body copy somewhere. So would you like to explain what your thinking was about having that big about button?
I love that you assume I had thinking about it.
Okay, that's a good place to start.
Well, I had it as the work with me for a hot second, and then I was trying to, because I had a whole bunch of headers, and I was trying to minimize a little bit. So I threw that over there, but it sounds like it was not the choice.
Well, so here is something to think about.
Yes.
People have been, people have come to expect certain things about websites.
Yes.
Everybody expects to see a few things in the nav area of a website. They expect to see a logo. You have that. They expect to see a nav, but typically they don't see like a button like that up in the top nav. And also there's some things about like, why would it be about? Because that feels like that should go inside your nav somewhere, right? Right. So it kind of throws you off. You're putting a lot of emphasis on about, and I'm guessing it's because you want people to learn about you. But you're doing that in other ways on your website, on your homepage anyway. Like that's better served in the body copy. So when you were, go ahead.
I was going to ask a question of would it be better if, like I've got the money type quiz over there that directs them to a quiz where they and I get a little bit, they get a little bit and I get a little bit, right? So they get out of it what are the archetypes that are in play in their behavior with money right now. And then I see that data as well. Would that be a better thing to pop over there?
Okay, so this is a good leeway into the next discussion of how should we organize your nav that would make more sense for the user. And again, thinking back to what I said, that there are certain things that people have come to expect from when they look at a website, right? So this is what my suggestion would be. I don't think you should have a big call to action button up there at all. I don't think that's where people look for that. They look for it right where you have it, which is this call to action, work with me button that you have right underneath your headline and your subhead or your tagline, right? That's where they look for that. Up here, they just want to figure out what pages you have and where the content is. That's all they're looking for. So I would remove that button. Another thing I don't really love is how your nav is centered. I think it almost runs into your logo on the left-hand side. I would get rid of the about button and push your whole nav over to the right. Push it over to the right. Now, back to your question about the money type quiz and does that make sense to be in that nav? That's a good question because you are putting anytime you put anything in a top nav, you are saying this is super important. Look at this. And that is important, but it kind of, I don't know. It may make more sense if it was in a sub nav somewhere, right? And also, if you read your nav, like the different items you have work with me, you have the quiz, speaking, articles, contact. Something I noticed is speaking. This is actually where your blog and your podcast is, but that is not obvious. When you look at your sub-nav, it says events and money conversations. People want to see the word blog. They want to see the word podcast. So that's really important. And all these things, and articles is your blog, isn't it?
Yeah. I think under speaking, it's like events and it was the podcasts.
The podcast and money conversations is what? What is that?
I think that
is the podcast.
Podcast.
Yeah.
So speaking is events. Okay.
It sounds like I am generating confusion.
Yes. So this is my suggestion. I think you should have about in your top nav. And then maybe it makes sense to put your podcast and your speaking events under about. Those are things specifically about you, right? And your blog.
So clever.
And your blog. Okay. So instead of speaking, put about there. And again, people kind of expect to see the about nav item next to the contact. Contact should always be at the end. You have that there. That's great. Maybe right before contact, you have the about nav item.
Okay.
Now, and back to the money type quiz, that kind of feels like that should be under something else too. I'm not exactly sure where right now. Maybe under Work With Me. Maybe that's a sub item under Work With Me, but it does not feel like it should be a top nav item. That doesn't feel like the right place for it. Another thing I noticed that I think was interesting, I was looking at your footer, and down in your footer, you have a link to values statement. Yeah. I read your value statement. I think that's really important because you were talking about your values and your ethics related to money. I almost feel like it's being buried down here in your footer. Yeah, people are most likely not going to find it there. If that is important, and that's up to you to decide that people know this about you, that's another item that you could put up under about in the sub nav.
A couple other things I would recommend. Work With Me feels like they're ready to work with you. Work With Me. Oh, hell yeah. Boom. I click Work With Me. It takes me to a page called Work With Me, and any relationship with money, an easy relationship with money. And then there's another call to action. Forget the rest of your words. I'm in. Let's talk. That's cute. That's clever. It takes you to, a contact form. This is where I expected to go when I clicked Work With Me, was straight to the contact form.
Oh, okay.
Not another page. That's a moment of friction, right? So if somebody's ready to work with you, then they're ready. Don't distract them from getting to this point. Okay. Bring them straight here. You could have that other content down below it. I don't care, but they're ready to work with you. That's why they clicked that button, right? So bring them straight here. The issue I take with your form is, holy crap, you're asking a lot of questions. This is a big form. I don't think I have enough time to answer all of your questions. I guess maybe later. And what does maybe later mean? I'm out. It means I forgot. I closed the tab, couldn't remember, couldn't find it. Wasn't really that invested anyway. I'm out. You've lost me, right? Now, it's not to say that your questions aren't good, but oftentimes, and again, hashtag it depends, you would have to test this theory, right? But oftentimes, you want that first touch to be as easy as possible. Don't even ask them their name. Just get their email. You can put in the verbiage, send me your email. I'll get in touch. I'll get all of the rest of your information later. Let's just initiate this now, right? And that's easy. They can give you their email. And also from a security perspective, they don't feel like they've given away their data to an unknown entity, right? They've given you some of the most valuable digital currency that exists, which is their email. I mean, that's why your money type exists, is just so you can get their email, right? Well, just get their email here. You could ask their name and email, maybe even phone number, but the more fields we add to our initial contact form for something like this, the more barriers we put in place. So we want it to be as minimal as reasonably possible. All right. Then when you get the email, hopefully you probably have some type of automated thank you for signing up email or for reaching out, right, to work with me. I'm so excited. You'll have some kind of automated sequence that happens. Then you hit them with all of these other questions. Now that they've initiated the contact, they're more invested. They're likely much more comfortable to give you their PII, their personally identifiable information, or at minimum, descriptors of what their current problem is and what solutions they're looking for, or whatever it is that you're trying to ascertain from this this current form, right? Side note, that automated response, thank you for reaching out to work with me, should not be instantaneous because it feels robotic. Remember, we're using psychology here. We want it to feel like they've reached out and a human has responded. We all know it was automatic. We just don't want it to feel dirty. And robots feel dirty, right? For whatever reason. So put a delay, 15 minutes, 45 minutes. 45 minutes might be a bit much, but they're probably not looking for an immediately gratifying response, right? They're not looking to take action immediately. They're looking to take action soon. So 15, 20, 23 minute, delay. Then it falls into their Dropbox. It feels like you responded, not a bot. Okay. Your website is using some animation on scroll JavaScript. So when you scroll down on any given page, your footer, some of your text, like when I scroll up, your text isn't readily available until I scroll. This, in practice, can be very, very powerful if it's done right and if it's done within reason. I have a problem with all of the movement and animation. Many, many websites are out there. You are not alone in this, Brittany. But the reason we use animation is because that's, again, one of our last instincts, is because animation draws our eye to it, right? Our last instinct, one of them is movement. I've got to look. And it's a safety thing, right? If I see movement, it could be falling. It could be a dangerous animal about to approach, whatever it is. And it does keep us safe, especially when we're walking down a busy street in the city, right? So we integrate that on a website to draw people's attention to it. Well, if everything is moving, then nothing is moving. And then all you're doing is creating a user experience that means I have to wait for it to load arbitrarily at whatever speed you put for me. I don't want that. I just want to scroll, see the text, find what I'm looking for. Oh, okay. Our goals, our how, our exploration. Okay, super. This is what I'm looking for. I love the bullet points. Make it easy for me to skim across and find taking intentional action with money so you can feel joyful. Sweet. That's what I want, right? Don't wait for it to load to give me that. And that goes for everything. And then when you apply this animation on scroll strategy on a very restricted basis, people are going to look at it and they're going to do or focus on whatever it is that you're really trying to get them to see and possibly take action with.
Makes sense. I would like to talk about a little bit more about the Work With Me page, going back to that for a second. That is a really important page for you. And as Daniel said, it does make sense that this might be the page where people fill out a form to contact you, get things started. Here's a couple things I noticed about that very important page. So first of all, nice choice on your hero image again. Love that photograph. The hero image on a page is a really great place to highlight kind of the mission statement of that page. So that title is really important. So here's what was a little bit confusing to me. So on this hero image, you have, it says an easy relationship with money. What this tells me is if I'm working with you, you're going to help me have an easier relationship with money. You are going to teach me how to have an easier relationship with money. But if I scroll down, the next headline says a holistic approach to money. So this confuses me a little bit as a user. I feel like easy relationship with money and a holistic approach to money are two different things. But those are the two headlines that you have on this page. So I feel like you should think about that a little bit, your messaging there. Like what is it that's most important, and make that your hero image title. So another thing I noticed on this page is you have an interesting call to action. And your button here, you're laughing already. You know what I'm going to say. Your button says, "Forget the rest of your words. I'm in. Let's talk." I'm not sure what that means. do you want to explain what you're trying to say with that call to action?
Yeah. I don't think you can hear me because one of my AirPods went dead.
Oh, we can hear you.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
So like I guess this is where I was hoping to invite that, like Daniel was saying, the person who's like already in, to go down there straight away. But it sounds like what I need to do is maybe create two options for them to navigate to. One which has like more detail on what like the offer entails, what our arrangement looks like, and then one that navigates straight to that form in a really like minimal way. So it's reducing the barriers to access.
Yes, that's great. And actually, that leads me to my next point. I noticed that on this page, this is where you also talk about your services. Mm-hmm. Now, if I was to go to you, if I knew you were a financial coach and I already knew a little bit about you, maybe I listened to your podcast, maybe I went to one of your speaking events, I might be looking for your services right when I go to your website. And I don't know where to find them. From your homepage, I don't know where your services are. So maybe if you were to put a services nav item up top, that would kind of kill two birds with one stone, just like we were talking about. Now, that is a quick and easy way for people to get to your services who have already know a little bit about you, right? So there's two things you're doing here. Your Work With Me page can be truly about for the people who want to learn more about why they should work with you. But for the people who already know a little bit about you, they can just go to your services page and go there and select service.
So can I ask a clarify, like concrete? I love abstract, but also I love concrete. So it sounds like what that could look like is I have a services with drop downs, and then like one with what is the exact container that we work together? What does the working arrangement exactly look like? Yeah. Is there a space for like, what are the theoretical, philosophical, like underpinnings, or do people not even care about that stuff?
I think they care. Again, they care. And especially if they don't have any previous experience working with you, or they haven't been listening to your podcast or reading your blog, more information you can give about that is the better. You need to have that on your website. So I think that's,
where does that live then?
That is a good question. I think that could be, well, just from my perspective, and this is really more for you to figure out because you know what your services are, but I feel that would be attached to a services page. Okay. What do you think?
Okay. That's what I was wondering. I was wondering if that services looks like there's something in there about like I don't know. Clearly brevity and like direct language is not my strength, but something about philosophy, and then something about like the specific container in which we work, and then form.
Yeah. Okay. So philosophy is probably not a service that you're selling.
No.
Right? So philosophy doesn't sit there. It sits under about. It's about you and your philosophy. And you could also maybe double stack it with an FAQs. You know, if you built a page that was in FAQs and you incorporated that as an opportunity to integrate your philosophy, then you could do that way, or just keep them separate. But you know, what does it look like to work with you? that's an important feature. And if we don't align, then I don't want to work with you. And I don't want the headache of having to say no to somebody that I just started a relationship with. So people do look for that, but they also can find it in your articles, in your blogs. As you're writing, they'll see the whimsy that you integrate into life. They will get to know you that way. And you should be building that out no end. You should be regularly updating with articles that aren't just about financial empowerment, that are also about just what being financially empowered looks like, right? So the end result, this is what it looks like. You can maybe even do some, not necessarily case studies, but success stories of other women, 40 years old, who are recently separated and have one child and have been stung before, who have taken, your services on board, what they look like now, where they are at, right? So it's a faux testimonial, right? And you don't have any testimonials that I saw.
I've got them on my phone, and that's not doing
on your
us
phone.
Any good there, right?
On your phone. Your phone's a good place to have testimonials. At least they exist, unless you had AI write them, and then they still kind of exist, right?
So Daniel's points about the philosophy and how that relates to your services, those are all really good points. He's right. That would make more sense under an about. However, because it's kind of related to your service, I mean, that's what makes your service special. You can have links to that from your services page, right? So maybe you have your product there and you say to read more about my philosophy on this topic, click here. And the other really great thing about adding links to other pages is it sends people around your website and it creates what we call link juice. Link juice is really good for SEO, and it does help people kind of look at other areas on your website that maybe they wouldn't have gone to before had you not had a link there. So it's really great to try to direct people to other places on your website. That'd be a good way to do that.
Okay. That's amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome. I am going to point out one quick thing I saw in your footer, because I think this is really important for you to know. Your Instagram icon is broken. It does not go to your Instagram page. So,
I mean, to be fair, the Instagram doesn't get much update, but yes, thank you.
Okay, no, that's a good question. How important is your Instagram? Are you trying to grow a following? No.
What I think, okay, so this is where I start to get a little bit woo. I've been meditating on this, and I've been reflecting on this, and I don't get any joy from Instagram or Facebook. And so I think what I want to do is I want to move my focus instead of from those places onto LinkedIn. And so
Brittany, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, go ahead.
Brittany, I was just going to say, you would not believe how many people say this these days. This is very common. It's true. I mean, a lot of times I feel like business owners, especially entrepreneurs, feel like they have to hop onto every social media channel. It's exhausting, right? And then you have to start looking at, is that really serving me? Is having an Instagram following really bringing me that much business? And I think it's brilliant that you have already realized that LinkedIn is probably where your customers are. I agree. I think that LinkedIn is a really good place for you to focus. And then, just choose one or two social media channels to put that time and energy into, because you just can't be everywhere. Right. It just takes too much time. So that, we hear this from a lot of people, and I completely understand. And I was going to say, if you don't feel like you need to grow an Instagram following, go ahead and take that link out of the footer. Go ahead and put LinkedIn down there, but also if you really do want people to start connecting with you on LinkedIn, which I think is a good idea, maybe that goes in your top nav. You know how sometimes you see social icons at the top instead of the bottom. If it's in the footer, people will see it there too. That's common, but it depends again on how important it is to you to start growing following on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. So if you want it to be important, if you're putting a lot of time and effort into posting on LinkedIn, go ahead and put that in your top nav so people can find it easier.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah.
So a couple of quick takeaways from the top nav. Trisha mentioned maybe a bit of a reorg. Speaking probably needs to be differentiated. And while your podcast may be about money conversations and may even be called Money Conversations, nobody knows that if this is their first time to your site. So you want to change that to podcast.
Yep.
Right. And then they click on it and they'll see that it's called Money Conversations. Articles might better be called blogs or just blog, right? And assume that there are articles. I know Trisha says she doesn't like that CTA over in the top right corner. This might be the opportunity where you say, let's get started. Let's talk. Let's do something. And that goes directly to the form completion. If you take phone calls, it could just be let's talk on the phone, something. And then one more thing that occurred to me is this is more like UX copy, user experience copywriting. Work with me. When we read things in our heads, we personalize the information, right? It becomes mine. So if I said work with you, that would feel weird. Work with me kind of works, but it's like, does this mean I'm working on myself? We have this kind of confusion.
True.
Or let's talk today. That's actionable. There's no confusion, but I'm not really sure. It's pretty obvious that I'm talking to you, but I'm not really sure how I'm going to be doing that. Let's get started feels a little too generic, right? And if you like woo-woo, then maybe generic doesn't really track. So you want to make something that
together with that.
Yeah.
Work together. Yes.
Yes. That might fit. So finding the right words in a button. I really like what you did, actually. Forget the rest of the words. I'm ready. Let's talk. I get it. But man, that's a lot of words. Can we find
I was going to say it's a lot, eh?
Two that does that, right? So maybe just something like, I'm in, hook me up.
Yeah.
But, something that's actionable. Work with me feels passive. And so by the nature of its passivity, it doesn't really resonate with me taking action, right? So I'm ready. If they click, I'm ready. I read that. It's about me because I read it in my head. That I was me, not you, right? So this is no easy job. They pay big bucks for UX copywriters these days.
Yes.
So good luck with it. But you really want to question everything. And I would say maybe come up with a list of 20 ways of saying it. And that's going to be hard. You'll get 7 or 8, and then you're going to start running out of ideas. You get to 15 and you're like 20, WTF. But if you can get to 20, then maybe number 3 is the best one, but at least you did the work, right? And you found out that there's really no other way to do this.
Yeah.
Brittany, we're going to say something?
I was going to ask a question. So
okay.
I like to use my effort carefully. What's the role of ChatGPT in generating some of this stuff? Like, is there a role for it?
Yeah. I mean, go to it. You can
like if
you
I
can,
said ChatGPT, find 20 ways of.
Yeah.
Very good question, and a question a lot of people are asking these days.
Right.
Yeah, it's a good tool when used correctly.
So, this is why all of us in digital marketing are both celebrating and incredibly fearful at the same time, because ChatGPT, eventually, possibly if they ever fix it, Bard, can do this with seemingly zero effort. But interestingly, we were having a conversation with another client of ours that is in the AI space. And there's now this move towards augmented I, which is AI plus HI, the human element. So whatever you come up with, you need to validate it yourself, and maybe even have friends and family see if your assumptions work as well. But partner up. Seems quick and snappy, doesn't really work in this situation. Let's team up. That's nice, but really, what does that mean? So, I mean, you might need to go through 50 or 100 iterations to try and identify something that really resonates. And you might end up back at work with me and say,
jumping point that like at least takes you, gives you a little bit more perspective, like takes you out of takes the blinders off a little.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And, I think it is really a great idea to have a CTA button that it looks a little different. I mean, I think a lot of people, they default to learn more or read more. And it is kind of fun when you do something different. So I echo what Daniel said, that your idea there of having a button that's different and a little bit, like your personality is really a great idea. It just needs to maybe be a little shorter and make a little more sense. A good example is when we were designing our agency website, Daniel made a CTA button for our hero image that says, hire us like yesterday. And I think he was doing that to be snarky at first, but I really liked it. I'm like, we're keeping that. So it's still there. And it's something different. It grabs attention. So I think it's great that you did that. Just start to define your message a little bit better.
Another thing, when you analyze, for those of you listening to the podcast and not watching the video, I went to ChatGPT and I asked it, find 20 ways of saying work with me. And it came up with 20 ways. But interestingly enough, to me, none of these say what you're trying to say. And that's telling. To me, that says the words work with me don't mean what I want them to mean, because they couldn't find one other phrase that said what I was trying to say. Right? So it has a place, if anything, in not providing you the answer or the solution, but justifying the need to fix things.
Yeah.
So, right. It's like, dang it.
No. It feels like what you're saying, and what it's doing is it's like making us aware of our blind spots.
Yeah. Yeah. Making us think about in a different way. It's hard when you're close to it and you know what it means. You don't realize that maybe people don't see it the same way you do, or read it the same way you do. Right.
All right. So I'd like to move this into a little bit more UX conversation, because I'm having some problems with a few aspects of the website.
Can you 5-year-old me UX means
user experience. So user experience is the function of the website. How does it function for me as the user? User interface, UI, is how pretty is it? Right? Okay. And so the reason Trisha and I partnered up is because I'm a developer, which is function. And Trisha's a designer, which is form. So I fit more into the UX lane. She fits more into the UI lane. I hesitate to say we both do both. Trisha does both. I don't do design. You don't ever ask me to do your design. It's not my lane. So the user experience, the function of the website, you have integrated this iframe so that you can utilize some kind of third-party solution on your website called Take the Money Relationship Assessment. If I take it, I assume, definitely. Ask ChatGPT. I assume that when I start, I'm going to sit in this iframe to complete it. Whereas you have another, which is the money type quiz, another linkable item, which kicks you into a third-party tool. It's not your own tool. It sits on a subdomain. But when I go to that subdomain, where is it? I clicked away. When I click into that subdomain, the quiz.thefee.ca, I end up not having the same type of experience. I don't have all of your same nav items up at the top. I'm somewhere else. It doesn't look the same. It doesn't feel the same. It took an extra minute to load. That might be enough for me to say I'm out if I'm in the hill country and I have bad service. And I'm like, nope, not going to do that. So there's a lot that I take issue with. However, the upside is if I end up going through all of the things and select all of the parameters and then click see results and then decide, oh, snap, I don't actually get to see the results. I now have to give you my email in order to see the results. I feel a little bit like I've been scammed here.
Taken for a ride?
Okay, I'll give you my email. So if I finally actually enter my email, then you're going to get that. How many people are completing this form for you?
So I've got a question for you then, because that money relationship assessment, which like teaching background and not good at brevity and snappy names, that's where that comes from. That is something that I wrote, whereas the money type quiz is something that I licensed, and it's part of like what I use when I work with a client. And I've been playing with it, like throwing the idea around in my head of honestly kind of taking off the money type quiz until after a consult or after like that initial contact and being like, okay, also, if you want to spend our time like digging deeper faster, fill this out and we can dive in on our consult. And then like repackaging the money relationship assessment, making it a little sexier, snappier, and then using that as my like lead gen.
That's a really good idea.
So I like that. And in fact, you could integrate the quiz into the automated reply that they receive after reaching out to initially initiate the conversation, right?
Yes.
So it could have, and take this quiz. You've already captured their email. Now you're capturing the deeper information. So that sequence would make a lot more sense to me.
Okay. It does and taking it off your website will help with that disconnect of it looking so different. But what I like also about this is it being like a lead gen. It really does. If you look at the questions, it really does make you start thinking about, oh, I never thought about these things. The things that are in your quiz, prone to blame, self-fulfilling prophecy. These are interesting. So I also think this quiz is a good selling point for you because it gets people realizing the kind of topics that they'll be discussing with you if they take the next step, right? So it is a really good lead gen and like step-by-step process to kind of get clients interested in your services.
This strategy, I also like it, but you're using a third-party tool called Typeform.
Yes.
You could probably embed a form that you built, not too dissimilar to the Work With Me form or the contact form, and, ask the same style of questions. I just don't like how it's built into this ugly iframe. It just doesn't work. Could you not make it fit better, make it prettier? it might need its own page. I have no idea. But so those are just a few like UX issues. Now, the next thing that we need to address is the Lighthouse score. So I'm going to share a different screen, and I'm navigating to a different tool called the Lighthouse tool. And in order for it to work, you have to be in an incognito Chrome browser. The Edge, Microsoft Edge actually uses the Lighthouse tool too. So once you've logged into your page, you right mouse click, go to inspect, and then you're in the inspector tool. And there's an option for the Lighthouse. So this is where I ran that report previously, and I said my now infamous statement, Squarespace strikes again. So what you're seeing here is just this really slow loading. So the performance metrics are the page load speed, right? And if we scroll down into the actual results themselves, then we can see that it takes almost 13 seconds for this image to finish loading, right? So the LCP, largest contentful paint, on a mobile device, what is the largest thing that takes up the space that has to load before we can actually see and engage with the page? 13 seconds for that image. That tells me that the image is probably not compressed. It's probably not sized proportionately, particularly for mobile. And then the other very troubling issue is your T to I, your time to interactive, is 12 seconds. That means an average mobile user will have to wait 12 seconds before they can start interacting with your website. That's kind of a long time. That's not no big deal. Now, when somebody wants to see who you are because somebody has spoken about, man, you should check out Brittany Tam and the financially empowered entrepreneur. Dude, she's amazing. And they come to validate that information. They're probably willing to wait 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds. 12 is a push. But even if they're willing to wait 12 seconds, then we have all of the other issues that we have ideated through, right? The content and the UX and the design and all of those other problems that are probably going to be trip hazards. But it's pretty certain that if anyone ever found your website in a Google search, they never waited long enough for it to load. Like, just didn't happen. So I'm guessing that all those people that are making it to the quiz only made it to the quiz because somebody told them they had to take it, not because they found you on Google or LinkedIn, right? If they're going to see you on LinkedIn and go to your website, 12 seconds, they're out. Don't have time, right? So your performance speed is worrisome, but this is standard for Squarespace. Squarespace is a slow MRFer, right? Because of all of the bloat. your about CTA, right? That thing. You put about there because I'm guessing because you didn't know what else to put there. And the theme that Squarespace fed you had something that goes there and you didn't know how to make it go away. So you just shoved something in that spot, right? Welcome to Squarespace. I think
somebody told me it was important to put a button there. And I was like, okay. So yeah, it was.
All right. So then when you start dialing in on the other metrics, you've got 94 for accessibility. That's great. It's kind of a lie. What this means is that a visually impaired person should be able to access your website and see most of the things that they should be able to see. But when I look on like the coloring, the white over this, I don't even know, Trisha, what color is that? Some kind of color. I find it very difficult to see, right?
Melon.
So
Let's call it melon.
Melon. Okay. So if you're looking at my screen, I've just gone and I've found this piece of code in the HTML of your website that is the button. I click on the color of the text, and you see this red strikeout. It says contrast ratio 2.48, and then the red strikeout. That's like the Ghostbusters, right? This means that it's not accessible. So programmatically, they were able to get all of the parameters to pass, but from a genuine experience, someone with a visual impairment like myself, and I'm not wearing my glasses, I ain't reading that. Not a chance, right? So you really need to change your coloring to a much darker color, and then maybe only then we'll start getting a check mark that says it's accessible. 5 is still kind of borderline. If we want it really accessible, we need to make sure that our color is really quite dark, and then we can get double checks. So anything kind of over 7 is doing really good, right? Do you see how much darker that is? But do you also see how much better you can see that? So the accessibility of your website is yet another issue that needs addressing. Best practices, because it's of the nature of Squarespace, there's only so much that you can do. And then your hands are tied because Squarespace, right? And SEO, there's only so much that you can do because your hands are tied because Squarespace. So Squarespace strikes again. Yeah, this is not new. You can improve these best practices. You can improve your accessibility. You can improve your SEO. Not a lot you can do on your performance unless you start really cleaning up your images. If you really care, then you need to leave Squarespace and go somewhere else. We recommend WordPress. Don't go to that other place that sounds like sticks. Stay away. Yeah. Stay away with the barge pole. But yeah.
WordPress seems like difficult.
It is. Yeah. The funny thing is the lie that we tell our clients is, oh, WordPress, it's easy. No, it is difficult.
Squarespace
That's
is
why
easy.
we teach.
Yes.
We have an academy that teaches WordPress development. It ain't easy. But do you want it easy or do you want it right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're basically telling me that when your client comes to you and says, yeah, but spending my money on junk is so easy. Saving it seems like that's hard. You're going to tell them, oh, that's okay. Just go spend it.
I think this is where maybe in some ways I am like my client too. You know what? That's why people are attracted to us, right? Where it's like I've had people do it before and it hasn't met like whatever mental image I have. And so like the control freak in me is like, well, at least this I can go and move things around. I'm not going to break it. Like I might break it, but I'm not going to break it in the same way I'm going to break WordPress. Right. So
yeah. Well,
part of me is like, this is where you guys pitch.
Yeah.
This is where you guys talk about the experience of hiring.
The thing is, you're clearly very intelligent, so you could learn WordPress. But it's the same kind of conversation that you would have with yourself about repairing your fence. Do you have time, effort, and energy and the know-how to go and repair that fence yourself? Or
and interest.
Would your money be better spent and interest, or would your money be better spent hiring a professional to come and fix that fence while you do those other things that you love and that you're actually good at, right? Some people, they want to own it. They want to do it. They want to learn it. Kudos. And whereas other people, they don't. So you just have to determine, and a lot of it is arguably financial decisions, right? what can I afford to invest in? But this is not something that you can fix easily yourself. Squarespace. You can tailor it, you can modify it, you can improve it, but there's only so much that you can do. Once these other pieces start falling into place and you start finding more clients, then you either learn a better tool yourself or you hire professionals to come and do it for you. But this is going to be a problem until it's not, until you can fix it.
Yeah. And just to further define what easy means as far as updating your website, Brittany. So I understand what you're saying. And like Daniel said, some people don't have the interest or the money or the time to hire web designers. This is why Daniel and I do both things. We have an agency where we design websites for people and companies. And we also have an academy for people who do want to take the time to learn it. It's not easy in the sense of a Squarespace where you're dragging and dropping. But the thing is, did you know when you were using Squarespace that it was important that you add a photograph that was a certain file size because that was going to slow down your site? Did they tell you that? They didn't. Do you have any control over your SEO at all? You don't. Very little control. A little bit, like your descriptions, that type of thing, but not advanced SEO. There's not a whole lot you can do beyond the tools they give you, which, to be quite honest, are easy. Whereas if you have a little more control over your website, even taking the step to learn some WordPress, you do have more control. And it's not like so hard that it can be learned. It can be learned. It's just, again, interest. But it's not as hard as you'd think it would be. It just sounds hard, but actually it's not. I mean, we have people from all different backgrounds taking our WordPress classes, all different backgrounds. And
but that aside,
with a little dedication, it can be done.
But that aside, if your interest doesn't sit there,
right,
don't worry about it. There's so much for you to do before that ever comes to head, right? Fix your content, clean it up, address the navigation, fix your colors, fix your page layout, get rid of all of that animation fluff. So much for you to do. Compress your images. And then, like I said, once you find more of the hers, your persona, and start attracting more, then you can address whether or not it's a reasonable decision. Maybe never, if you start making the bacon, then fine. You don't, clearly it doesn't matter. It's working. It's doing its job. So that kind of takes us to the end of this podcast, Brittany. And so I'd like to ask you, one thing, either it's a piece of advice or an action that you would like the listeners to take. What do you have to say? What do you have to request that someone listening to this should take away, not from this digital marketing conversation, but from just being or becoming a financially empowered entrepreneur?
I think it's connected to this. And I think it is getting engaged and getting involved and starting to come to any of the things that we do in life with this perspective of curiosity. Chances are pretty good that our next action is not the make or break thing. And that weight can hold us back from doing anything. So I think gentle, curious action taking.
Yes, I like that. That's a great tagline right there, Brittany. I like that.
Gentle, curious action taking. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, put that on your website somewhere. That's perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you.
Brittany, it's been a real pleasure meeting you, getting to know you, and finding out more about your business, The Financially Empowered Entrepreneur. I just want to say, from We Rock DM, from myself personally, thank you so much for wanting to join us and actually coming and speaking with us today.
Yes, Brittany.
Oh, it's been such a delight. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. Yeah, you've been great podcast guest. And I just really love the mission of your business. I think it's a great idea. And I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to the We Rock DM podcast. We hope you found our discussions on digital marketing and web design and development helpful and informative. Don't forget to follow us on social media and subscribe to our podcast to stay up to date on the latest trends and strategies in the world of online business. We'll see you in the next episode of We Rock DM, where we make kick-ass stuff kick-ass.